अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम वरहमतुल्लाह।
क्या हाल चाल है तारिक साहब, खैरियत से हैं?
पाशा साहब, अल्लाह का शुक्र है, बिल्कुल खैरियत है। आप सुनाएं।
शुक्र है अल्लाह का। बाकी तो
चल,
पार्टिसिपेंट नजर ही नहीं आ रही।
हाँ बस वो क्या कहें, अब हम शायद वो पुराने वो थे तो हमने कहा और कुछ नहीं, गपशप तो होगी ना पाशा साहब से।
तो आप लोग भी इधर ही इस्लामाबाद में ही या फिर सऊदी अरब में चले गए हैं?
मैं सऊदी चला गया हूँ, ये तकरीबन 1.5-2 माह होने वाले हैं।
अच्छा अच्छा।
लास्ट टाइम टेलीनॉर में आपके साथ मुलाकात हुई थी, याद है? भूल गए?
जी हाँ जी, हाँ जी, टेलीनॉर में।
तो वो उसके बाद अभी यानी काफी काम किया, फिर मैं और नईम साहब साथ ही थे। अभी महीना डेढ़ हुआ है कि मैं यहाँ आ गया हूँ।
माशाल्लाह।
आप सुनाएं।
शुक्र है अल्लाह का, बस वक्त गुजर रहा है।
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह।
तो जॉब शॉब ठीक चल रहा है आपका?
मैं जॉब सर्च कर रहा हूँ, अभी तक हुआ नहीं है, जॉब नहीं हुआ है अभी तक।
हो जाएगा, आजकल तो ये ट्रेंड चल पड़ा है ना कि उधर जाके जॉब सर्च करें तो हो जाता है।
ऐसा ही है, यही चल रहा है। बहरहाल वो जितना वो इतना इजी करके हम समझ रहे थे, वो इतना है नहीं वैसे।
उसकी वजह है कि अब देयर इज अ लॉट कंपटीशन, यू सी द ओनली द सऊदीज in progressing the job orientation like that। बाकी अब दुबई में इतना ज़्यादा काम नहीं है। इस और मिडिल मतलब कतर अभी आस्ता आस्ता वो वापस स्लैक कर रहा है, जो वर्ल्ड और फुटबॉल था ख़त्म होके।
बिल्कुल
अब
ऐसा ही।
सऊदी का ये जो न्यू प्रोजेक्ट है, यही इस वक्त मार्केट में जो है ना वो लर्चिंग है।
ऐसा ही है।
मोस्टली फिर लोग उधर ही जो है ना शिफ्ट हो रहे हैं, तो नेचुरली फिर देयर इज अनदर नेशनलिटी एज वेल दे आर कम्पीटिंग।
वो एक और जो चीज जो है ना, वो जो बहुत ज्यादा उसमें प्ले कर रही है, वो ये है कि इनका वो जो ट्रैकिंग सिस्टम है, एटीएस जो है ना, वो एप्लीकेशन ट्रैकिंग सिस्टम जो कंप्यूटर के जरिए आप जो है ना जॉब पोर्टल से होकर आ रहे होते हैं ना, वो बड़ा खराब है। यानी आप उसमें अगर आपने बिल्कुल एग्जैक्ट वो चीजें नहीं लिखी हैं तो मोस्ट ऑफ द टाइम यू मिस इट। और आपको जो है ना वो कंप्यूटर जो है ना वही आपको डिस्पोज कर देता है बगैर किसी जगह शो
इंटरव्यू के।
किए। बिल्कुल।
ओके, सो मोहम्मद आसिफ साहब, हाउ आर यू? कैन यू हियर मी मोहम्मद आसिफ?
Hello.
Yes, can you hear me, please?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So, good evening to you. So, you can understand English, Urdu, or what language?
No problem. Language transfer. Any language.
Okay, so you can understand the Urdu.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. कल परसों नहीं सुबह सब कोई वेबिनार चल रहा था ना तारक साहब, सस्टेनेबिलिटी वाला।
मैं सफर कर रहा था, मैं उर्दू वाला सफर कर रहा था, तो मैं वो ज्वाइन नहीं कर सका, मुझे नहीं पता लगा। फिर वो उनसे कहा भी एक साहब से, वो जो जिन्होंने अरेंज करवाया था, कि यार रिकॉर्डिंग दे, शायद उन्होंने मैसेज नहीं देखा अभी तक।
अच्छा,
हाँ जी।
लेट्स से कि 2 मिनट्स मोर, क्योंकि 6:40 हो रहे हैं मेरे पास। आपके उधर क्या 4:30 होगी?
जी बिल्कुल, 4:38 हो रहे हैं जी। तो
इधर भी वही सिस्टम है, 2 मिनट्स देखते हैं और उसके बाद फिर स्टार्ट करते हैं।
ठीक है जी।
इन बिटवीन जो भी लोग ज्वाइन करना चाहें वो कर सकते हैं।
ठीक।
वो क्या नाम है, अरे वो नहीं थे राजा साहब, राजा महमूद?
जी जी
पुष्पैक वाले, वो भी आजकल उधर ही है ना?
हाँ बिल्कुल, वो रियाज में ही है, लेकिन मैं असल में अभी तक रियाज में ही था। 15 एक दिन हुए हैं, मैं तबूक आ गया हूँ, तो वो
तो
रह गए हैं
ये कल परसों इन्होंने लगाया था तबूक में, कुछ सेफ्टी ऑफिसर चाहिए और उसी रीजन का कोई बंदा चाहिए, ये तो इन्होंने भी लगाया था आसिफ शिराजी
अ,
साहब।
शिराजी साहब से बात हुई थी बहरहाल, वो फिर उन्होंने फोन करना था, हम लोगों ने डिसाइड किया था, लेकिन वो शायद बिजी थे तो उन्होंने फोन वोन नहीं किया फिर। मैं तो फारिग होता हूँ, तो मैंने कहा जब आपके पास टाइम हो मुझे कॉल कर लीजिएगा।
Better you call him to get this opportunity in
अब
cash.
देखता हूँ, ऐसा ही है।
So welcome, Mr. Rashid Iqbal. How are you?
अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह सर, आई एम फाइन। आप सुनाए सर, कैसे हैं?
बस शुक्र है, लगा जैसे छोड़ के गए थे वैसे ही हैं सर।
चलो, अल्लाह का बड़ा शुक्र है फिर सर।
हाँ।
जी जी।
चलो जी, now it's 6:40. I think let's we start because we are getting late and the people. I think this is a off day in Saudi Arabia. Friday is off day.
दैट्स राइट।
इस वजह से लोग प्रिविलेज ले रहे होंगे ना कि चलें। So can you see the screen?
यस सर।
Chale, let's see if there is no any foreigner, so we can talk into the English. Otherwise, we can be proceed in English as well. It's no problem. Okay, ji, this is a brief profile. My name is Said Pasha. By educations, I have done my disaster risk management, MBA, and professionally, I'm a graduate member of the IOSH, member of ASSP, and the former president of ASSP Pakistan chapter since 2021 to 2022. I'm also the resource person for the Directorate of Education. It's a subsidiary of Ministry of Labour, Government of Pakistan. I'm also approved trainer of the International Labour Organization, and we have conducted the audit in the polyclinic and in the health center. Also visiting faculty members for the Preston University and teaching the environment courses over there. Approved assessor and trainer for the OTGM Level 7 Diploma in Risk Management, Strategic Management, and also approved assessor and trainer for the NOCN Level 4 for the Hazard-Based Operation and Emergency Response UK. So my work history, I work for 25 years with Slamba in Pakistan and Muscat, Oman. I was safety manager in Pakistan I-9 base. Then I joined Expert Audit Field Services in 2010. Those are thus. Then shift over to Capital Builders to work with the construction industry. And finally, I landed on 2nd February 2012 with the MOL, and I worked over there for 10 years. So since 2021, I'm working as a freelancer and based at home. So if you talk about the experience altogether, I have more than 30-year experience purely in the field. So I have seen occupational safety. I have worked with the construction safety, process safety on the plant, rigs, exploration, and the logistic as well. So course progressions, this is the flow of the presentations. We will be discuss environmental emergencies, type of environmental emergencies, key difference between the emergency, crisis, and disasters. We used to talk about that, okay, this is emergency, this is the crisis, and this is the disaster. What actually really a difference between all three definitions, we'll be discuss that. So principle of disaster management, if there is any disasters, irrespective if it's a natural or the man-made, how we can be manage that. Finally, will we talk about that the risk management strategy, how we can be identify, assess, evaluate, transfer the risk, prioritize the risk, and finally maybe we have to accept the risk. So this is the flow of the presentation. So what is the environmental emergency? So an environmental emergency typically refer to a sudden and significant threat to the environment that require immediate action to mitigate or contain its impact. These emergencies can result from the natural disasters such as earthquake, flood, hurricanes, wildfires, so as well as human-made events like industrial accidents, chemical spills, or the oil leaks. If I give you a current example, so maybe 2-3 years before, a tower crane was fell down in the Harme Park. So that was purely human-made disasters. A lot of people has been shaheed and many people have injured over there. So then next is environmental emergencies pose risk to ecosystems, wildlife, human health, and property. So they often require the coordinated responses from emergency services. So this is the mixed emergency services, maybe the government sites, maybe the NGOs, maybe the volunteer peoples, or the government authorities, controlling authorities to assess the situation, minimize the harm, and initiate the cleanup efforts. So this is the basic definitions which covers not only environmental emergencies harmful to human health, but also is a property or surrounding where we are. So what are the examples of the environmental emergencies? The oil spills in the oceans, hazardous material leak into the rivers,
क्या
nuclear
चाहिए आपको?
accidents.
हाँ?
Can somebody please put off your mic, please?
तो ना वो आ रहा है साइन.
Hello.
ये सर मोहम्मद आसिफ का माइक ओपन है, वो मेरे ख्याल में सुन
Oh,
नहीं
yeah.
रहा.
Then the large scales wide fires in the forests, and ultimately it's bring the negative impact on the biodiversity and the human settlements. So I can give you the examples, the oil spills in the oceans. There is a accident in Exxon Valdez. This oil transportation ship is carrying 1.2 million barrels oil and stuck against the rock, and the oil was spread over in the oceans. You can say 41,000 cubic meter spills on the oceans. So there is a lot of example in USA or in the Europes. Hazardous materials leak and transport into the rivers, and aqua life has been died. Nuclear accidents, Chernobyl is a very famous example for that. And then there is a Japanese nuclear power stations which was damaged or maybe smashed due to tsunami. And then there is a large number of examples of the forest life in the Amazon, in the Brazil and the USA as well. So one way the other way, we have to address all these emergencies effectively. And if we have to address it effectively, then we need swift actions, resource mobilization. So these resources must be available on the site or nearby, and corporations from the NGOs, government authorities, volunteers, or those who are providing the emergency services on site. So these are the examples. You can find it's a man-made or the natural. So the natural, there is another example as well. This is the picture from Pakistan flood. You can see this is the natural emergency, but ultimately it's brought the devastating effects on the human, not only the human, but also the cash crops, infrastructures, and you can take the name of anyone and you can find over here. And this has happened due to climate change or the word hot cake discussions nowadays, global warming. So type of the environmental emergencies. So there is a two type, natural emergencies and the human made. So it can be categorized broadly on the basis of cause, source, and type of the impact they have on the environment and human health. So number one, there is the environmental emergencies. So these are caused by the natural processes and the phenomena. So often human activities such as the deforestations, urban expansions, and the climate change are the basic sources of that natural environmental emergencies. These emergencies include weather-related disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, storms, blizzards, and the heat waves. In Middle East, this is very common. There is a heat waves. Even in Karachi, last couple of years, there was a heat waves, and many people killed over there. Hurricane, tornado, these are the very famous emergencies in the America. And storms, even in the Middle East, there's a sandstorms there. So geographical events, earthquakes, tsunami, volcanic eruptions, and the landslides. So you can find the landslides examples even in Pakistan. However, you can find the examples of the earthquake in the Middle East. The tsunamis is a very famous in Japan as well, in coastal areas of India, Pakistan, and other countries as well. Hydrological events which relates to the floods, tidal waves, and the glaciers lake outburst. So Pakistan is also a victim of the floods, although tidal wave means ocean storms. It's used to become, and Karachi, Thatta, or Arab oceans, they also face all this type of the environmental emergencies. The floods in Pakistan, you can say Pakistan is claiming like that due to the climate change or the global warming. The glaciers in Pakistan, 6,500 glaciers is in Pakistan. So they are getting melting. So due to that, the influx of the water in the rivers is getting manifold. So due to the sediment in the rivers, it's getting out of the bank. What is the flood? If the water is flowing out of the bank side, so that called as a flood. So these flood may be on the hilly area side, it's not so devastating. But in our like a Thatta or the Sindh area or the Punjab area, plain area, so definitely it's brought very, very devastated damages to the infrastructure, to the crops, to the human health, to the human capitals. So Pakistan is almost facing, Pakistan claim in the COPS 27 more than 12 or 11 billion dollars loss has been estimated by the Pakistan, maybe more than that. But however, in Geneva, they agreed to pay $11 billion to Pakistan, but still we did not receive any penny from them. The fourth one is the biological events. So biological events directs diseases, epidemics. So when they impact on the wildlife agriculture significantly, the pest infestations means the pest make influence and the moss wildlife dies off. So biologically, if you talk about this COVID-19, okay, so it brought a very devastating, or you can say huge negative impact on the human health. Has been millions of people has been died, and still every day we are listening. This is the dengue fever, and this is the COVID-19, and there's any pneumonia, and so on. Then the human-made environmental emergencies. I can give you a one good accident, industrial accidents, which belongs to Alpha Piper. It's a North Sea of the USA. In 1986, so there was a accident on the North Sea rig that belongs to the Occidental of USA. There was a permit to work filled for the maintenance and placed on the table of the company man or the rig superintendent, but he did not notice that. And due to that, there was a huge explosion on the rig side, and 166 people died on the rig due to fire. Is a thick smoke over there, which was impossible for the helicopters and any other rescue teams to be land on the rig side. So 160 people killed on the rig side, and one person was died in hospital. So total 167 people died due to a single human mistake, because the permit to work was not notified to the appropriate authority, and that was not communicated properly. And then they took the leverage of that particular piece of equipment of the pump, since they did not see any permit to work or the maintenance request. So they thought like that, okay, he's working. So then when the pump A was shut down, they took the leverage, we have to start the pump B, but there was no wall was installed over there. There was only the blind installed, which is insufficient to hold the pressure. So then the gas leaked and it caught fire, and all have gone quickly. Apart from that, there is a chemical spills. Other good example of 2010, 2010, deep waters, Gulf of Mexico, Macondo well. So this well also went out of hand due to human error, and the oil was spilled more than 6,500 kilometers. And then the BP has to spend a lot money to make a cleanup. They made a payment to the people who died. 11 people died due to this accident. But the aquatic life has been ruined. So nuclear reactors melt down, that is Chernobyl, Fukushima. Fukushima was in Japan and Chernobyl was currently Ukraine. At that time it was Russia. And then there is an explosion in the industrial facility like the BP refinery in Texas, USA. So there is a number of industrial accidents which has been made or which has been occurred due to a small mistake of the man or the operator, and that machinery could not be controlled by the humans, and ultimately devastating action has been taken, or there was explosion, or you can say a large scale fire has been erupted. So resource extraction accident, oil spills, deep water horizon, mine tailing dam failure. There was a, maybe you often listen the word of this Survivo directives or Survivo accident. Basically, Survivo was a name of the place in Italy. There was a refinery over there, and refinery was the set on the fire. But there is another tragic accident in Italy as well. The dam has been failed. So whatever they made, the drawing of the design of the dam, so due to landslide on the reservoir catch-up areas, so the level of the water gone high abruptly, and then the dam was failed. And at that time there was a night, and people living surrounding that village, they drowned over there, and a lot of people killed. And then again the gas leak, very famous accident in the Alpha Piper as well. So waste management failure. So toxic waste dumping, landfill failures, and the sewage discharge into the natural waters. So nowadays this is very common difficulty, where they have to be dispose of the waste, where they have to make a dumping of that. So nowadays, even in the country wise, so America is using some African countries and they are dumping their waste over there. But within the USA, the state of the USA, they are more conscious. They are not allowed any other state to be dump their toxic waste in their territory. So I can give you an example. So when I was working in the Schlumberger, suddenly I received a bill of lading from the Dubai office. You are receiving some samples bottle. Basically, that sample bottle basically contain the mercury. And please dispose of these bottle in Pakistan. So when we asked why you are shipping this toxic material into Pakistan, they said there is a death penalty in Dubai if we have to dispose of this mercury-based equipment in Dubai. So in Pakistan, please, you can do that. You see? So they think like that, the third world countries or the Asian country, maybe they don't know about this material, the lack of the knowledge about the material, or maybe there is no law at all, maybe there's no accountability, so they can dispose of this toxic material over there. But since nowadays people are very conscious, government are very conscious, NGOs, any other service organization, they are now conscious. If it's a toxic material, so they are not allowed to be imported into that particular country. Even Pakistan have some embarkations. In certain number of the hazardous material is not allowed to be imported into Pakistan. So this is another problem nowadays due to the awareness in the environment, where they have to be disposed of the waste management. So there is another transportation accident. So I gave you an example, spills and leaks from the tanker ships, trains, trucks, and the pipeline carrying hazardous material, Exxon Valdez. So 41,000 cubic meters, there was a spill over there. A lot money they have to be spent to clean the oceans. So infrastructure failures. So dam collapses, power plant failures, or urban flooding due to inadequate stormwater management. There's a number of examples. The dam failures or the power plant failures, and maybe the steel structure infrastructure failures, like bridges is failed and collapse over there. So conflict and the warfare. Nowadays, it's a very good example. I cannot say it's a good example, but it's a very relevant example. Environmental damage due to the military action. So nowadays, you can notice the Ukraine and the Russia. So they are fighting to each other. Similarly, Israel, Palestine, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, Somalia. So due to this military action, there was fire caught out in the oil refineries due to fire, or maybe people are making the deforestations and the chemical weapon uses over there. We used to be read it out of Israel or other countries are using the phosphorus or the other chemicals against the Palestinians or other nationals. So environmental agency basically requires a specific set of response strategies, which includes immediate actions to protect the human life and health, to protect the assets. So for the long-term, environmental remediation requires policies and the practices aim to prevent and preparedness in case of any emergency, so they can respond immediately. So it should not be escalate because it's a general phenomena. If you contain your emergency within 5-10 minutes, you can contain it. Otherwise, it will get out of hand. So difference between the emergency, crisis, and the disasters. Usually, we speak these words on the different occasion. Is this emergency? Or how you can be a report whether this was emergency or this is the crisis and the disasters. So let's use these slides to be pointed out. The terms are often used interchangeably in everyday language, but practically, these words have their distinct meanings. So once we know about that, then we can make an effective planning, response, and recovery plans and the efforts. So we have to understand emergency, what is the emergency, and how we can be controlled. So emergency means to say unexpected or unpleasant event or often dangerous situation that require immediate action. So just to be control that emergency, we have the localized and manageable existing resources. So if we are living short of the resources, then we can call the local resource to be help us. For example, there is emergency on the organizations. So we are calling to the ambulance services to become and help us to transport the injured people from the accident site to the hospital. But however, on the site, we have the firefighting team we have the fire extinguishers, we have the foam trolleys, hydrant, sprinkling systems, or whatsoever you take the name of that, maybe the PPEs, specialized equipment we have on locally available on the site or in the organizations, and we can be fight back with that emergency. If you talk about the fire emergency, or if you talk about the medical emergencies. But emergency might disrupt the life of individuals or community. But the scale of emergencies are relatively contained or manageable. Means this emergencies within the premises of the project or office or the organizations. So the examples are include the house fire, car accident, or the medical emergency on the site as well. So the second term is the crisis. So this is a situation that threatens the high priority goal of an organization or community and require the immediate attention as well. So here is the two situation. One is the threaten to the goal, and second is threaten to the community. So nowadays the community is getting the attentions. Once you talk about the word sustainability, this means you are talking about the economics, you are talking about the social and community, you are talking about the business relationship or the product. So unlike emergencies, crises have the potential to significantly disrupt operations or damage reputation if not managed properly. Usually you have listened the slogan to protect PEAR, P-E-A-R. PEAR means to say P stands for to protect the people, E stands for to protect the environment, so A stands for to protect the assets, and then R to protect the reputation. So here, if it's not managed properly or immediately, then this is threat to company reputation. So they characterized by the uncertainty, high stake, and need for critical decisions. So crisis can be from internal issues within organizations or from external pressures. And if you like to control, so this requires the strategic management to address it. So the example of the crisis, so I can give you another example as well. If there is an emergency and our resources are getting short of that, so you are calling that resources out of your jurisdiction. For example, a person sitting in Riyadh, so there is a organization, there is an emergency, so it's getting escalation, and then they have to be get the resource out of from that town and other cities. Maybe there is a human fatality or injury, maybe the media involved, regulatory authority involved, or maybe the family of the injured people are involved. So that become a crisis. So this type of the incident or a breach of the data in a corporation level, a scandal affecting the public trust. Maybe you release some figures of your financial figures, so which was not correctly projected in the stock exchange, and people lost the trust, and might you lost the price of the share of that particular company dropped down abruptly. or sudden economic condition or the downtime impacting the community. So all that are the example of the crisis. So now you can see what's the difference between the emergency. Emergency means to say unpleasant event, but can be controlled through the local resource available in the organizations. Crisis means to say if something happen, local resource is not enough to be controlled that, and you have to have all the resources out of you from your jurisdiction. On top of that, if there is any injury, then the injured or the grieved families are involved, regulatory authorities involved, government organization is involved, media is involved, so that will become a crisis for that organization. So this is the difference between two. Finally, the disaster. So disaster is a severe disruptions that affect a large area and population, overwhelming local capacity to respond effectively without external assistance. So disaster can be a natural, like a hurricane, earthquake, or the floods, or the human-made as well, industrial accidents, or terrorism, or the war. So I gave you an example of that. Industrial accidents of the Alpha Pipers, the tsunami, earthquake in Pakistan as well. The impact of a disaster is extensive, leading to significant human, material, economic, and environmental losses. So the response to be controlled the disaster is required coordinated response effort from multiple level of government, non-government organizations to provide relief and support recovery. So disasters example is COVID-19 and Pak earthquake of 2005. Still, Pakistan is striving in the Kashmir area that was hit by earthquake to make a rehabilitation of the human, to reconstruct of the infrastructures and resettlement of the population over there. So disaster means to say is there is unpleasant, unplanned event, and the damage is so large, even the government at its own cannot be manage it, and you need international assistance. So this means cross the jurisdiction of the country, you are looking for the help. The international communities, international donor agencies, international NGOs are involved, so that will become a disaster. So this is the difference between the three. So on the basis of that understanding, so you can plan, you can respond to the situation. Either this is the emergency, you can use your local capacity resources, or maybe you have to ask some other organizations. So what are the key difference? So we discussed the three definitions. What are the key differences is scale and scope. Emergencies are usually more localized and can be managed with the immediate or often pre-existing resources. Pre-existing resources mean to say an organization have the emergency response plan. Maybe they have the firefighting team, they have the spill control team, they have the fire extinguishers, they have spill kits over there, they have the medical management of the employees or other things. Crises have broad implications which potentially impact on the reputation or operation or the strategic goals. So it requires management on both tactical and strategical levels. So within the jurisdiction or nearby the jurisdiction. And disasters is widespread damage and require extensive recovery efforts, or maybe spread over the year and years to be make a settlement. Impact and response. Emergency require quick, often localized response. Crisis demand strategic responses and mitigate the threats to operation and the reputation. And disaster necessitate a coordinated response from the various stakeholders, including government agencies, non-government agencies, to address the extensive damage and support affected communities. So lastly, preparation and the management. So while emergencies and disasters can sometimes be anticipated and prepared for, if somebody says that emergency means to say is out of blue, no, there is a science as well. For example, the fire is broken in the organization. Maybe many times there was an inspection or the audit or the reports that something is going to be happen over here. So we have to have control the pressure, or we have to have control the leak of the gas. But once we are ignoring that, so then it's become a emergency. So crises often emerge from the situation that may not have been as predictable. It gets all of a sudden. So requiring the adaptive and the strategic crisis management skills. So we have to be ready, make a drill of that. So people must be trained how to control the crisis or the emergency or the disasters at your workplace. So for that reason, we have to allocate the resources. We have to provide the training, education, or maybe we have to make a practice and exercise of that. So understanding these differences can help in planning, implementing the appropriate measures for the preventions, preparedness, response, and recovery of each type of the situation, no matter it's emergency or crisis. So the next step is the disaster management. So you just think about that. If there was an emergency, but we controlled that. There was some crisis that was controlled by the organization. Now it's a disaster. Maybe the lack of resources locally, we cannot be controlled that situation that is converting to the disaster. So this is the diagram, basic pillars of the disaster management cycle. So on the left side, you can see the before the event. We have to have prepared ourselves. So this means the organization has to take the extensive study. What can go wrong? How we have to control that? What type of the resources available? What type of the sources are required? For that reasons, they have to make an audit of that to identify the gaps. And then that particular gaps has to be filled in. So once we are prepared, then we have to make a drill or exercise of that, how we have to use this equipment which is available over here. Many times you will see if there is a fire erupted somewhere and you like to shoot the fire extinguisher, most of the time you notice if fire extinguisher is not working because the powder is solidified over there. So how it happened? This has happened if we make a preparation, but we did not be checked or make a maintenance over there. So that is why when there is a real emergency, the emergency equipment was not working properly. So definitely failure to respond to the emergency convert to the crisis as well. So once we have the self-contained breathing apparatus, so in case of any confined space injury or situation or there is a fire and you have to used the self-contained breathing apparatus, CABA. So people must be trained how to use that equipment. What is the difference of the positive pressure and what's the difference of the negative pressures while you are using the SCABA? If we don't have the idea about the negative pressure, this means to use the SCABA in some area where there's a gas leak is a disaster for the person who's using the SCABA. So we have to keep the positive pressure in the mouthpiece. Means if the gas is going to be entered due to the ambient pressures inside the mouthpiece, there must be a greater than that pressure in the mouthpiece which displace or push back that contaminated airs. So you should not be smell or take the breath of the contaminated airs. If there's a negative pressure inside the mouthpiece, so due to the ambient pressure, the leak gas or the contaminated air will be enter into the mouthpiece when you take the sniff of or to take the breath. So that will be a disaster for you. It's difficult to be survive over there. So we have the very nice document with us, nice equipment we have, but if there is no training, no drill, people don't know how to use that, that preparedness is fluffy. So before to start any emergency or crisis or disasters, the first principle says if we have to prepare ourselves. So we have to take the note of the different emergency scenario. For example, when I was working in my previous organization, so they identified the 33 emergency scenario on the plant side, on the rig side, on the social road transport side, okay, community wise. So we should be take the note out of the boundary of the organizations, maybe the plant or project or the office or whatsoever. What can go wrong while the driver is driving on a busy road? Maybe he get the accident. Maybe accident due to the accident, the car can get a fire. Maybe the vehicle can be hijacked. Maybe there is a vandalism. Maybe the inside the office due to the earthquake, there's an injury. So there is a different type of the scenarios. The emergency team can be identified, and on the basis of that scenario, so you can make a response. If such situation can prevail in the organization, how we are ready to respond that. So first principle is preparedness. Second thing is that the preparedness should be tested. Third is documented, so that you can assess the authenticity of the preparation. The next step is that if something happens, so response. So there is another element is the mitigations before the event. Mitigation means to say, if we cannot control the severity, so what type of the arrangement we can make to lower down the severity, to minimize the damage. All that arrangement will come under the umbrella of the mitigation measures. I can give you an example of that. For example, if someone is driving a car and the seat belt, if it's buckle up the seat belt is a mitigation measures. In case of incident, accident, the damage to the human body will be a minimum comparing to those who are not wearing the seat belt. Although wearing the seat belt cannot stop the accident to be occur, but it will guarantee You will not be projectile out of from the vehicles on the road. So similarly, if you have such type of, for example, you can take these examples, first aid box. So if you have the first aid box at your organization and something happened to a injury or whatsoever, and you gave the first aid and stabilize the injured person, or somehow you can stop the bleeding, this is the great achievement. So if there is no arrangement at the site and bleed is getting profoundly, so maybe he can die. So this type of arrangement called as a mitigation arrangement. So perceptually, conceptually, if there is something happens and we have to be response, so response should be a calculated response. What type of the emergency? If we are prepared to be respond that, we have the resource to respond that, we have the expertise, so then we have to be response that emergency, or we have to follow our emergency response plan which is available in the organizations. And the next step is that the recovery. So let's discuss one by one in the next few slides. So if you have any question, can you hear me please?
Yes, sir.
Or if you have any questions, you can ask. So this is not a lecture type class today. So you can ask your questions. We have to be discuss it. Okay. I like if people should ask the question, and we have to discuss the issues. Even you can ask the question in Urdu, or if you like, I can speak in the Urdu as well. So this is the pictures, how the man-made incident happened worldwide. So now in the picture you can see this is the response. And the firing of the showering of the water shows the preparedness. So maybe this plant, they already calculated that fire can be happen due to the nature of the operation on the site. And for that reason, so they have the resource over there. So in the event of this fire erupted over there, or maybe the explosion, you see there is a three color over there. Is yellow, red, and the black. The thick black shows that there is a liquid like a oil. Yellow shows there is some gases over there, and this reddish is also giving the indication maybe the oil is as well over there. Once the oil start burning, so then there's a thick smoke, and it's the start of the burning, it's get little red. So I can assess that this is the maybe the rig or the plant, and there is an explosion, and now they are making firefighting over there. On the left side, you can see there is a natural earthquake. So let's discuss on the few coming slide as well. Again, this is my Pakistan. So you can see the people are surrounding with the waters. Now you can take the name of that. Maybe there's a biological hazard over there, or they don't have a place to leave these houses. Their agricultural crops has gone, infrastructure has gone. There's no drinking water for them. Health issues there, psychological issues there. People have lost their money. So all these pressures have the bad health effect on the humans. Now we have to discuss what is the principle of the disaster management, or on the basis of that principle, or by applying that principle, how we can control this disaster, or at least we can manage these disasters. So first we have to look on the principle, and then by applying these principle, we can say we can manage the disaster management. The first thing is that we have to make a preparedness. We discuss a lot about that. Then prevention and the mitigations. Prevention means to say we have to take such a step. If we have to prevent that event to be occur. For example, if there is a river is getting out of hand every years, how we can prevent that? But somebody has to think about that, to be raise the bund, to prepare a dam. Maybe someone has to be think about that, to dig out all these sands and make a deep level of the rivers. Or maybe we can educate the community to leave this area and resettle down from another area. So response, if something happen, I can give you the example in Pakistan, NDMA, National Disasters Management Authority. So basically, whenever there is something happens, they respond to that event. They have their source with them. So they have the workforce. They have the commodity and article store with them, like a tent or the medicine or something else. If something happens, then they respond. Or maybe with the collaboration of the weather department and other department, they make an early warning to the community. So recover. Similarly, in Pakistan, we have the authority like a IRA. IRA mean to say earthquake rehabilitations organizations, or the government department take the responsibility to rebuild the houses, or some NGO take the initiative. Like in Sindh, there's a KPT, it's a NGO who's preparing the houses for the poor people who have lost their houses during the flood. So we have to make integrated efforts to government department, non-government department, volunteer organization, international donors, the countries. Coordination among the different organizations like a NDMA or any organizations like in Saudi Arabia, you can say the emergency services is there, government bodies there, or different departments who are providing the services and the controlling authority like a municipality or baldiya or whatsoever. Communications, it's a two-way communications. Communications to the government levels and communications to the community levels, to educate them, to inform them about the hazards, about the risk, about their health risk, or maybe they have to be communicate with them, please leave this area because maybe we are unable to be controlled that floods and the level of the flood is going to be high and high and high. But all that effort has to be materialized once the community is involved. If the community is not involved, if the community did not know about the arrangement, so all that arrangement will not be properly placed. It's very important that any department, government department, NGOs, or whoever is making any effort, they must speak with the local community or whoever is facing that problem. Then the capacity building, to give them training, educations, to give them some psycho treatment, how to get out of this problem. So continuous improvement and equity and inclusivity. So let's go one by one. So disasters encompasses the three things. Number one, the planning, response, recovery, and mitigation efforts. And these principles help to ensure the systematic efforts, efficient and capable of protecting lives, property, and the environment. So some principles are here. Number one, the preparedness. If we have to prepare, how we have to prepare. So we can prepare ourselves or communities or at the government level for the potential disasters through training, planning, and the education. Like in Bangladesh, on the yearly basis, they face the flood over there. So now the people are very trained and tuned in such a situation what they have to do. So government have built a permanent shelters in a safe area where the people automatically shift over there for that time. And whenever they feel that there is this flood is settled down, they come back to their villages. And when these shelters are empty, so they use that shelters for the schooling. So preparedness is involved developing emergency plans, conducting drills, and ensure the resources of supplies readily available. These resources may be from the government side, maybe from the donor side, or from the international organization like a World Bank, Asia Bank, or UNO, or whatsoever. So preparedness means to say that we have to give the training, planning, education, developing plans, testing the plan as well. Drill means test the plan, the level of the comprehensiveness of the plan, the level of the awareness of the plan among the peoples. And finally, we have to make sure resources are available and that resources are intact. For example, we have the resource. For extension, I gave you an example, but their powder has been set down. That resource is now useless for me. Prevention and mitigation, the second principle. So this can be involved engineering measures. How we can be make a maybe is a soil burn or make a deviation, convert the route of the flood. So how we can make environmental management such as the forest management to reduce the wildlife risk, and maybe we have to have prepare some laws like a building code or zoning laws. So I can give you an examples like in Pakistan after the earthquake of 2005, the government decided to go for the seismic survey of the Pakistan to find out, like Islamabad, they find out that most of the places are on the fault line where the earthquake can be happen and maybe the losses will be significant. So if we have the building code, due to the sand or due to the soil quality, we cannot be go for the high-rise building unless we have some special arrangement like Saudi Arabia or UAE. So they are making a building for the 100 levels of the stories, but they are making some engineering control as well, because since there is a sandy soil, so they cannot be go for the 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 like level of the buildings or level of the stories. So they have to have piling. Some zoning laws on the fault line zones or the zones which is near to be a volcano or some other problems. So there must not be a settlement of the human or the community settlement there. So we should prepare some law as well. Third element is a response. So this could be a emergency services, humanitarian assistance, coordinations among the different agencies and the organizations. So emergency means to say the 1122 or the ambulance services or some volunteer services in case of the collapse of the buildings. So then maybe the civil defense organization comes forward to be help the peoples. So finally, recovery. So once there is a emergency, we are responding to that. And then finally, once we complete our response, now the next phase is that how to be rehabilitate the community to recover and resettlement of the humanity. So restoring the services like utility services, water services, maybe the electricity services, maybe the telephone services, maybe the gas services. So we have to restore the services where people have to be live apart from the buildings. Repairing the infrastructures like a road structure, bridges, buildings, supporting affected communities in terms of giving some food supplies, some monies to be purchased, the articles to be live over there. So these are the examples how recovery process can be initiated over there. So integration. Integration means to say a daily governance and the community planning, ensuring that all level of the societies are prepared and resilient. Many times people says due to this incident, now that nation have showed their unity. So this means that the response of the society, irrespective, is a high class society, middle class society, or the ordinary people. So they are contributing. They are contributing for the settlement of those who are affected due to the earthquake, or maybe due to the explosion, or maybe due to the collapse of the buildings. So this is the integration. Coordination among the different entities, maybe it's a government sector, private sectors, maybe it's the government agencies or the non-government organizations, maybe a community, businessmen. So coordination ensures the resources are used efficiently and efforts are not duplicated. Don't reinvent the wheel. So that's why coordination among the different government departments as well. Communication should be clear, accurate, and timely communication. Don't delay the information. Suppose a weather department receive a warning through their radars and they are not timely communicating to the concerned populations, so might they will be in a trouble. And similarly, a coastal department receive information, they must be dissipate this information to the concerned people. Maybe they have to vacate the area to move to the safe area. So this communication must be before the event take place, during, and after the disaster is critical. The communication can be through the radio, can be through wireless systems, or maybe the telephone systems, or maybe the public address systems, or maybe vocally people are placing the information to other people as well. So this involves disseminating the warnings, providing information to the public and stakeholders, managing information about the disaster's impact, and response efforts. So all that communication must be documented as well. How the communication is being dissipating to the concerned peoples. So community involved, how we can be engaged the community. We can engage the community through planning, response, recovery, ensure the efforts are tailored to the local needs. So whatever the local needs, we have to adopt that technology and strategy. Maybe the plan is very good, but that plan is for the international community, not for the local community. So we have to modify that. So leverage, we have to take the local knowledge of the peoples. What is the custom and right? How the people are defending this type of the disasters or the event, and what type of the resources are available locally. maybe drinking water source is available, maybe the road structures are available, infrastructure is available, medical services is available. So we can be notify that, but all that information can be gained through the community involvement. Capacity buildings can be through training. So training, I said simple word, please give the training. But training required resources in terms of finance, in terms of the trainer, in terms of the place where you have to give the training. So resource allocate must be there. Enhance the infrastructure, how the training has to be conducted. Maybe we are using some multimedia, maybe using some computer, maybe through the papers, or maybe vocally, verbally we are talking to each other. Practically we are demonstrating some things, and the services, what type of the services available over there. So gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Are you sleeping or you are listening me?
नहीं सर सुन रहे हैं
Any?
We are listening you, sir. Don't worry.
सर
We
कोई
are listening.
कोई आवाज नहीं आ रही, मैं समझ रहा कि तुसी सुते हो, मैं कल्ला बोल रहे हैं.
नहीं ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਹਾਂ sir.
अच्छा अच्छा. So the next topic is that the continuous improvement. This element is integral part of any planning, any effort. If you talk the emergency plans, if you talk about the risk assessment or whatsoever. So this element, the continuous improvement, is integral part of your efforts. So whatever you have done, whatever you have the plan to be do, or whatever you are doing, ultimately you have to check if whether there is some difference, there is improvement, or maybe stagnations, or maybe it's getting bad. So this principle encourages the adaptation. You should make a change. If you feel that there is no continuous improvement, you need to be change the plan. You need to be change the methodology. You need to be change the efforts of the implementation of the plans and update all relevant plan and procedure based on the lesson learned. So this is very necessary, irrespective if you are talking about the disaster management. Generally, you'll just look on your office. There is a plan, there was some event, so there was investigation, and during investigation we find it out some gap. So that give us opportunity to revise our plannings, to fill that gap properly, to avoid the recurrence of this incident, accident in future in that particular organization. So continuous improvement is a very, very important. And you see this ISO methodology, PEDCA, plan, do, act, check. Check means continuous improvement. Check whether plan is implemented properly or not. Equity and the inclusivity ensures that the disaster management efforts are inclusive and consider the needs of all segments of the population. Sometimes it's make very injusticeness while they are making the disaster management. So they are just focusing on the gender side, like a man. So they are ignoring the woman, or maybe they are giving little less comparing to a man to a woman. Maybe they are giving more or less to the child. So that must not be. There must be some equity. So provide the resources, irrespective of his child, maybe food. So provide the full food to child, woman, and a man. Don't make a discretion. So all segment mean to say all type of the humanity, irrespective cases, young, old, or child. Especially the most vulnerable is vital for the equitable recovery and resilience building. So do not be think like that. Okay, if we have a plan, like take a situation. There is a flood, and then there's a three people are stuck over there, and we have to rescue them. One is old, one is young, and one is child. So we should not be think like that. Okay, first we have to recover the child, then man, and then maybe we have to recover an old man. So all three have equal rights, and we should make equal efforts to be recover them. And basically most vulnerable, the old man is most vulnerable, or the child is most vulnerable. So we have to recover one of two, and then maybe the young boy. So these principles of the disaster, if we are adhering to that, so that gives you the help idea to create a comprehensive and effective disaster risk management strategy and plan to save the life, reduce economic losses, and enhance the resilience. Resilience means recovery. Recoveries of the communities and the nations. So up till now, we were discussing that what is the principle of disaster management. Maybe practically, if we have to manage the disaster, so therefore there's some little different headings. But one way or the other way, if you know the basic knowledge, so you can devise your strategy, you can prepare your plan, you can implement your plans to manage it. So that's why before in the start of this presentations, so make a definition difference. What is the difference of the emergency? What's the difference of the crisis? And what is the difference of the disaster management? So now we are talking about the disaster management, how we have to manage the disaster if something occurred. For example, in Pakistan, there is a flood, and flood is making a devastating damages to the humanity, infrastructure, capitals, human capitals, cash capitals. So how we can prepare ourselves and cope up with the disasters. Again, same base for principle: preparedness, response, recovery, and mitigations. First, what we have to do, make a risk assessment and planning. What happened? So there is a 5W and 1H technique. 5W mean to say what happened, where, when, who have to conduct the risk assessment, okay, and how it happened, why it happened. So we have to make a risk assessment on the basis of this 5W1H, and then make a plan. So number one, first make identification of the hazard. So then we say, okay, oh yes, hazard is flood is there, or maybe it's converting to a disaster because the damage is on the very high level. Significantly, there's the damages to the human, or maybe animals, maybe cash crops, or maybe infrastructure. The next is the vulnerability analysis. Okay, due to this hazard, who is at the stake? Assess who is more exposed, prone to this hazard, maybe communities, maybe infrastructure, and the environment. All three you can find in the flood of the last year in Pakistan. Communities were at the stake. A lot of people died over there. A lot of people have the health issues. Maybe a lot of people have the psychology issues because they have seen the father of a boy was drowned in the water. A woman had seen his husband has gone his child has gone, and the vice versa, a man has seen his child is gone, his wife is gone. So they have the psychologically pressures on their health. Infrastructure, roads, bridges, maybe the electricities, the services, and environment as well. I show you the picture. The water was standing for long times, which creates some communicable diseases. So resource inventory. In Pakistan, we have the NDMA. So they have the inventory with them, like a medicine, like tents, like blankets, or the cash money or whatsoever. Compile a list of available resources, identify the gaps in resources needed for the effective disaster response. A very good example of this inventory is that once the COVID was erupted in Pakistan, so we do not have the inventory. We did not have the COVID vaccine with us. So that was the gap of the resources available in Pakistan. At the same time, you find it out, we do not have the sufficient respiratory system in Pakistan. So then we have to import it from China. Early warning system and monitoring. So nowadays, weather department, so they are issuing the warnings. You can see on the weather stations, every day they are showing. This morning you will see the shower rains, maybe storms, maybe the heat wave, temperatures, pollen allergies. So they are issuing the warning to the communities. So monitoring hazards using the technology and data analysis to predict and track disasters event as they develop. So in Pakistan and out of Pakistan. So the weather radar is basically playing their pivotal role to identify all that environmental hazard in terms of storms, in terms of floods, or maybe some chemical releases, or the contaminated air, heat waves, or the global warming. Number 3, educate and training through the campaigns, workshops, drills, and training. So like in Pakistan 2005 earthquake, a lot NGOs of the Germany, Japan, and other so they gave a training to the local people about the first aid, about the bricks masonry systems, about the carpentry, about how to be prepared the tents. So a lot local workforce, the human capital was trained by that particular NGOs through the trainings and drills. Emergency response plans. So we can, or if you have the plan with you, so update the comprehensive emergency response plan. So emergency response plan basically have the 3 things. Number 1, the roles. What is the role of human and responsibilities, and then the procedure available, so that everyone have the clear role and responsibility. There must not be any conflict among the peoples, among the different individuals. So ensure the plan includes the needs of all community members, including the vulnerable population. In our plan, we have to identify what is the area which is prone to the flood. How many people are there who are vulnerable, who are more exposed to such type of for the emergency, and we have to recover them first. Infrastructure resilience, how we can make a rebuilding, rehabilitations through the building structures, transportations, networks, and restoration of the utilities. If we can repair these, or we can make available, then the resilience of the human is more easy. Or implementing land use planning and building codes that minimize risk in hazard prone areas. Maybe the government have the law, it do not like in Azad Kashmir in 2005, they restricted, you cannot reconstruct your houses in particular area. So next is community involvement. Can we take a few minutes break? 5 minutes break, can we take?
Sure, sir, sure.
एक मिनट में सर आ रहा हूँ जरा.
जी इधर भी अजान हो रही है सर. और
ठीक है, इतनी देर में ब्रेक करता हूँ 5 मिनट की.
जी जी.
So I'm back now. Hello.
यस सर.
Chalji, let's start. So the next was the community involvement. We discuss a lot, and coordination and collaboration. We also discuss about that. Financial planning. This is very important. Either we have some funds with us, and if yes, where we have to spend. What is our priority? Our priority is to make a reconstruction of the buildings. Our priority is to provide the health services. Our priority is to build the capital infrastructures. So first we have to have raised the fund. After that, we have to prepare some concrete plan where we have to be spent and how we have to revive the businesses in that particular area. So secure funding for the disaster management activities include emergency funds for the response and recovery efforts. Maybe the government have to release the funds. Maybe we have to request the international community to provide the assistance. So this will encourage the individuals and the businesses to obtain insurance to mitigate financial losses, or vice versa, what we can do. So being the lesson learned from this, any incident, so we can be motivated to the people. We can motivate to the business people. So please get the insurance of your businesses or individuals. If something happens, the insurance company has to make the good of your losses. So like in Europe or other, so people have their insurance. Even now you can see in Pakistan's, if you are taking your cars from the installment from the bank, so they have the condition that you have to get the insurance. If something happen, maybe insurance of the car is theft, maybe the insurance for the car is set at a fire, maybe insurance for the accident. So by that way, your asset will be, or your business will be remain safe, because the third party has to make a good of your loss. Post disaster recovery and reconstruction. This means disaster has been gone, response has been made, recovery has been made. Now people are slowly settling in their homes. Rehabilitation has been started. Now you have to think of that, what happened, how it happened, how we can prevent that. So after that, disaster recovery and reconstruction, what we have to do? Number one, plan for the rapid, efficient, and the sustainable recovery. So we have to make a plan how rapidly we can recover. And reconstruction efforts that improve resilience to future disasters. So how we can stop recurrence of such incident in future. Or maybe we have the plan due to the seismic survey. So this population at the fault line, and government have the regulations. The next time, no population is here, no high-rise building in this area, only the single stories, no cemented houses there. Then the next, sport affected communities with the sociological, psychologically services, and economic assistance. I gave you an example. People have some psychology effect on that because they have seen lots of family members have been lost in the earthquake. They killed in before their eyes. They are eyewitnesses of that, what happened to them. So definitely they have the psychological problems. Maybe they lost their livelihoods. So therefore, the government or some voluntary services, so they should provide the psychological services, psychosocial services to the individual or the groups or the families, or if they need some economic assistance to gain the momentum of their livelihood, so they have to have a plan, and plan must be implemented fairly among the peoples. Review and learn. So based on the lesson learned, so we have to revise the strategy. So I can give you a very good example of the NDMA. I have a number of times visited their sites and I was seeing their documentations. So yes, so they are learning from the past. They are learning from the gaps, and they are streamlining their efforts to respond to the emergency more quickly and more professional manners. So they are revising their documentations, they are identifying the gaps, and they are performing well if you compare into the 2005 incident. So environmental and cultural considerations. So integrate environmental conservation and the restoration as part of the disaster risk reduction and recovery efforts. For example, if there was any area like a forest, so due to the landslide or due to the flood area, due to earthquake, so that forest area has been destroyed or maybe is no more with us. So we have to make a afforestation. Afforestation means to say we have to acquire the piece of land, and again we have to plant the trees over there just to make a balance. Respect and the preserve culture heritage. No matter case Islam heritage is a mosque or some other heritage in disaster prone areas do not be considered like that. Okay, we have to have saved the mosque and do not be save the church. So we have to be fair. So this must be a considering the planning stage. Okay, what we have to do, what type of the heritage we have to be safe. So up till here, we discussed the two topics. One is the environmental emergencies, and we discussed at length okay, what is the emergencies, type of the emergencies, is the nature of the man-made, then how to be manage these emergencies and difference of the emergencies and the crisis and the disaster. Again, we discuss about the disasters, principle of disasters, and how many the disaster if something happen in the country or in your organizations. Now we are going to be the last leg of this presentation is a risk management strategy. So there is a different type of the definition of the risk. If you talk about the ISO 31000, so that says the risk means to say uncertainty to achieve the goal of the organization. That is the risk. If you talk about this oil and gas industry or some other industries, might the definition is slightly different. We will be discussed in the few coming slides how we have to be, what is the risk, what is the formula of the risk, how we can identify the risk, to manage the risk, how we have to make a comprehensive plan. If you look on this pictograph, so this shows the cycle. First we have identify, then analyze, then action, then monitor, then control. If you put together what you will be get, that is the risk management. So risk ranking can be varied. Maybe it's a very low risk, or you can say this is my residual risk. So once you talk about that, this is my residual risk, this means you are accepting this is risk, but it's so low. If I take it, the consequences of that risk is so low that will not make a significant effect on our business. So we can manage it. So this means we are at some level accepting the risk. So technically you can say it's a very low risk or low risk, or it's a normal, high, very high risk. Maybe organization to organization, the terminology of like that, very low, low, normal, may be different, but the basic principle is same. Either the risk is low, medium, or the high. And how we have to make a control, first we have to identify, analyze, action, and so on. Let's see on the coming slides. So risk management strategy refers to the systematic approach to identify, assess, analyze, and handle the risk. So if you make this such an approach, then you need to develop a comprehensive plan. So comprehensive plan must be outlined how to we deal with the potential threats and uncertainties. As I referred back to the ISO 31000, risk means uncertainties to achieve the organization goal. So we have to prepare the comprehensive plan how to deal with this risk. So effective risk management strategies are essentials for making informed decisions, achieving objectives, and enhancing resilience. Informed decision means to say if we have to have discussed with the stakeholders. Almost there is a more than 11 or 15 stakeholders. For example, your employees are stakeholders. Your management is stakeholders. your competitor stakeholders, supply chain or supplier, your stakeholders, regulatory authority, your stakeholders, government offices, stakeholders, maybe your investors, maybe the board of directors. All that is stakeholder. The relevant people who have the influence, who have the say in decision making, they must be informed what is our risk, this is our plan, and must we get the approval from that. That is the informed decision. So risk basically making a hampering in the achieving the objective. If you're managing the risk, this means you are achieving the objective of the organization. So objective can be a financial objectives, maybe a production objectives, operational objectives, HSE objectives, or maybe individual objective as well. So basically, once you talk the individual objective, that become as a organization objective as well. Because if you talk, this is the organization objective, so organization does not have an entity. How they can be achieved the objective? So this means the employees' objectives are ultimately objective of organizations and enhance the resilience. If there is some unpleasant situation, so if you have identified properly, timely, analyze, so then there is no problem to be achieved your objective. So let's go to the next slide to look on that, how we can be manage it. So risk assessment and analysis. There's a two type of the risk assessment. There is a different type of the risk assessment, but in general industries, oil industries, construction industries, so they are using the qualitative risk assessment or quantitative. But apart from that, there is a long list of that. If you talk about what if checklist, what if checklist, hazard probability, as of, if you put together, so you can say it's a quality-based risk assessment. If you talk about the FEMA, failure effective mode analysis, if you talk about the tree analysis, if you talk about the indexing, so this means you are talking about the quantitative analysis. But today we are discussing about the qualitative and quantitative both, just to make a difference in what type of the risk methodology you need to be adopt by looking on your project, or maybe by looking on the objective which you want to be achieved. The first qualitative risk assessment, if I talk about this, I can say simply in one sentence. Qualitative risk analysis mean to say is by using your experience, judgment, okay, then you can be declared by applying some checklist or whatsoever. Yeah, this is the low risk, high risk, or the medium risk. This is the reason. A person having a maybe 1 to 2 year or 3 year experience, he's making the risk assessment, comparing to the person having the maybe 5 to 10 years, and he's experienced and he used to be conduct the analysis. Maybe the answer is totally different. The reason being, there was no a fixed criteria. There's only a personal perception, personal experience, and personal judgment. So you can find the variation or the difference between the two. Comparing to, contrary to the other one, quantitative risk assessment, this means that there's a scientific analysis of the data given, or maybe previous data you have to take and analyze. So therefore, if a young boy or maybe a 10 years old experienced guy, if he's analyzing that data, answer will be slightly same, because they are looking on the number of the numerical values. So quantitative risk assessment, categorizing the risk based on their severity and the likelihood, without assigning the numerical values. This method often uses rating scales high, medium, low, and is useful for the prioritizing the risk. The first, maybe the organization decide the first we have to be handle the high risk within a maybe month, medium risk maybe for the 3 months, and the low risk maybe for the 6 months. So you can prioritize. There is a green, yellow, or the red. So if you talk about that, what's the formula of the risk? The risk is equal to likelihood. You can take the name as likelihood, you can take the probability, or you can ask this frequency multiplied by the severity is equal to risk. The simple formula is risk is you have to make a multiplication. In other words, you can say it's a mathematical calculations. So then you can give the number of that numerical values, and then you can assign the values like 1 to 6 is a low value, then maybe 8 to 15 is a medium value, then maybe 20 to 25 is a high value. And the vice versa, if we are talking about the quantitative analysis, so first we have assigned the numerical value. You can say if the answer is a 1, this means is equal to 25% of the loss of the project. If the answer is like 2, maybe is a loss of the 50% or whatsoever. So first you have to be look on that. If the methodology adopted by your organization, you must be well versed that how to implement that methodology to prioritize the risk. So quantitative risk analysis help in understanding the potential magnitude of the risk in the financial terms. So therefore, if we talk about the HSE, health and safety, irrespective is the construction industry, oil and gas industry, so mostly you will find quality-based risk assessment because they were not talking in the financial terms. So next, risk identification. So how we can identify the risk? Through human 5 senses, we can identify the risk. Human senses mean to say you can see, you can hear, you can touch, you can taste, you can feel. So this is the basic advantage of the human. Sometimes you can hear, you cannot see properly, but sometimes you can touch and feel. So through all these 5 senses, basic human senses, you can identify the risk. So this involves recognizing a wide range of possible threats from the financial and operational risks to strategic and the compliance related risks. So risk type, there's many risk types: operational risk, financial risk, HSE risk. So how we can make identification? There is another way. So brainstorming sessions. Do not underestimate even maybe a class 4 people with you. Maybe he's not speaking the same language, but he can give you some hint where you can translate it, whatever you are looking for. Another technology is SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, or the threat. This is another technique. By applying that, you can identify what is the risk and why it's a risk. Maybe your competitor is taking some changes, solid steps, and they are recovering the market. For example, in Pakistan or out of Pakistan, you can find a lot of telephone companies. They are providing their services. They have the competitions. So they are making the SWOT analysis. Which companies covering the how much of the percentage of the market. Or maybe some expert people are sitting, they have the competency in the risk assessment. Maybe ERM, enterprise risk management, they have the expertise. So you can hire them. So they can give you some expert opinion. So all these three are different steps you can apply. So then you can make a risk identification. So once the risk is identified, we have analyzed it. Then we have to make a prioritizations. This risk is acceptable to me or not. If it's acceptable, but the risk is high, how we have to manage that? So then in your organization where you are working, you can find the risk management procedure there. There must be a written risk identify, evaluate, and then the risk ranking, if it's a low, high, or medium. And then they gave you the guideline. If the risk is high, within a month you have to fix this problem. So once you will make a prioritization, so as per the procedure of the company, you have to take the necessary action. Maybe you have to replace the part. Maybe you have to purchase the new things. So maybe you have to make repair and maintenance of that. And finally, maybe the risk is so low, you are taking that risk. So you have to have prioritized the risk. Once the risk is prioritized, then how to have to handle that. Maybe we can avoid that risk. How we can avoid that risk? So maybe due to the technology change, maybe the lack of knowledge of the employees, you have to tune and educate them. Maybe you have to change the process to avoid the risk. Or you have to look on the causes. For example, if you find it out, a person cannot handle the machine due to lack of the training. So please provide the training to him. If there is a liquid store in your organization, there's a chance for the leak. If you put some secondary containment over there, then you can avoid the spill. Mitigations. Mitigation means to say you have to implement the measures to lower down frequency or probability or likelihood of that. Or if something happen, to reduce the severity or the impact of that or risk in your organization or the business or the objectives. So I can give you the two different examples. Mitigation measures. So mitigation measures to say it cannot be stopped the incident accident. For example, you wear the PPE. Even you have the coverall, hard hat and everything with you, there's no guarantee at all. It will prevent the incident. But this guarantee, if something happened to you, since you have the hard hat, if something fall on your head due to the hard hat, the severity will be low. If there is a splashes, you are using some shield, the severity will be less. So this is the mitigation measures where you can adopt and you can be lowered on the severity. Transfer the risk means to say the shift the risk through third parties, through insurance, or through the outsourcing. I can give you an example of that. A third party. Nowadays, you can find a lot of third parties providing some, even the manpowers. Or they are giving some operational equipment. For example, they are providing a car. You can use that for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years and return it back. There's no liability at all with you because you have returned the car. Through the insurance, as I gave you an example, if there is an accident, there's a cost of that, but that cost is transferred to insurance company. If the car is theft, stolen by someone, the cost is shift to somebody else. Then the acceptance, as we talked earlier, if there is a residual risk and we are accepting it. So recognizing that the risk is unavoidable and preparing to deal with its consequences. Unavoidable mean to say, if there is a high risk, then we have to redefine the job. So then we have to prepare the cost benefit analysis. If the arrangement is less than the cost benefit analysis, then job must be stopped. So acceptance is only at the very low level. Then the implementations, once you analyze everything, you have the strategy with you, you have the plan with you, you have the specific actions with you or policies, so you can implement that. How we can implement? Allocating the resources, assigning the responsibilities, and establishing the timelines for the risk management activities. To that, you can implement your decision. We have the decision with you, but we don't have the resources. We don't have the manpower who has to implement this procedure. If we don't have the manpower, this means that nobody is taking the responsibility. There is no role and responsibility. So we have to go for the realistic decision. Finally, make a monitoring and review, means continuous improvement, whether the strategy is implemented properly. The reason being, the risk management is an ongoing process. This does not mean that you have some plan and you have make a implementation and now there is no risk at all. Due to daily changes in the environment, in the process, in technology and the human activities, risk is there. So we must make a regular monitoring and reviewing. So this involves the tracking, identify the risk, detecting new risk, and assessing the outcome of the risk response reactions. So we can do through the technology. Nowadays, you can say CCTV cameras there, smoke detectors, heat detectors, some gas detector leakage. So through technology, you can identify and track your risk. Feedback from the human, from the technology systems. By analyzing that feedback, you can improve your risk management strategy. Communication and reporting. Once you find any risk, you must report that. So effective communication and reporting mechanisms are crucial for throughout the risk management process. If somebody noticed that, but he's not reporting, maybe there is several reasons he's not reporting. Due to lack of the knowledge, the form is so complicated, he avoids to be filled that form. The communication channel is so difficult to be report that. So first you have to get the approval and then you have to get the form and then you have to fill and then to appear before the committee, so and so. So people don't like to this bother. So once you receive the report of that, you must be informed to the stakeholder. Maybe the stakeholder of management, maybe the stakeholder of the production department. So the communication must be transparent, ABC, accurate, brief, and clear. So this does not mean the information passed on to the management and the information passed on to the worker and workforce have some difference. This will lost your trust. So once the trust is broken down, then there is no place to be rebuilt it. Finally, effective risk management strategy not only protect the persons, environment, asset, and the company reputation, but also identify the opportunity for the improvement and the growth of the peoples, growth of the organizations. So this can only be happen once we have the commitment from all level of the organizations, from A to Z, and that must be integrated into the overall strategic planning and decision-making process. So thank you very much. If you have any question, so you can ask the question. Otherwise, गुड लक। आप लोगों को कोई अगर कोई सवाल है, आप सवाल
टाइम आपने हमें दिया, बहुत कुछ लर्न किया है।
So I try my best to be, or अगर still you wants to be ask any questions, you can ask. ये मोहम्मद सदीक जट साहब है। हेलो सदीक साहब, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है? चलिए
Yes,
ठीक है
sir.
सर। ठीक है सर जी, कोई सवाल अगर आपका है तो आप पूछ सकते हैं।
No, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So thank you all of you to listen me, to patient with me, for your cooperations. Hope to see you some other platforms, maybe किसी और प्लेटफॉर्म पे कभी मुलाकात हो जाए। ठीक है, अगर आप मुझसे कोई सवाल पूछना चाह रहे हैं, बाद में भी कोई बात पूछना चाह रहे हो,
थैंक यू सो मच सर।
you can reach us. Okay जी, thank you. अल्लाह हाफिज, फी मानिल्लाह।